Rebecca Hayes stood in the glass-walled conference room on the 42nd floor, watching her presentation slides disappear from the screen as her boss pressed delete. "We can't have you representing us to the London office," Marcus Thornton said, not even lowering his voice. "Image matters in this business, Rebecca, you understand." Through the transparent walls, 20 colleagues pretended not to watch her humiliation, their eyes flickering between computer screens and the scene unfolding before them. She'd spent 3 years building the European expansion strategy, 3 years of late nights and sacrificed weekends, 3 years of being the invisible engine behind Thornton and Associates' most profitable quarter in company history. But none of that mattered when Marcus looked at her size 18 frame and saw only a liability. Tomorrow, the CEO of their largest international client would arrive, and Rebecca would be pushed to the background once again, her work credited to someone who fit Marcus's definition of professional appearance. If you believe in second chances and powerful reversals, like and follow this channel. Now let me tell you how everything started, and how one woman's refusal to stay invisible changed everything. Rebecca's alarm pierced the darkness at 5:30 a.m., the same as every weekday for the past 8 years. She moved through her morning routine with practiced efficiency. Shower, careful makeup application, hair styled in the sleek bun that Marcus once said made her look almost professional. Her closet held rows of black, navy, and charcoal suits, each tailored to perfection, because she'd learned early that any wrinkle, any casual element, would be weaponized against her. The plus-size tax, she called it, paying double for professional clothes while being told she still didn't measure up. The subway ride downtown was her thinking time, her moment of peace before entering the battlefield of Thornton and Associates. Today, she reviewed the presentation she'd prepared for the Blackwood Industries visit, 18 months of market research, competitive analysis, and growth projections that would revolutionize their European operations. She'd proposed this partnership, nurtured the relationship, built the entire framework. Yet when she'd submitted her request to lead tomorrow's presentation, Marcus had forwarded it to junior associate Chad Brennan with a casual, "This is more your speed," in the CC line. Chad, who joined the firm 6 months ago, who still asked her to explain basic financial terminology. Marcus Thornton ruled the 7th floor like a prince surveying his kingdom. At 45, he embodied everything corporate America rewarded. Tall, athletic, expensively groomed, with a smile that could charm clients and conceal cruelty in equal measure. He'd never directly called Rebecca fat, never had to. His comments were surgical in their precision, suggesting she might be more comfortable working from home during client visits, assigning her to back-office analysis while thinner colleagues handled presentations, introducing her as our research specialist, while others got VP titles. His favorite weapon was the break room, where he'd loudly discuss his marathon training while glancing meaningfully at her lunch. The first microaggression came at 9:15 a.m. as Rebecca grabbed coffee in the break room. "Big presentation today," Marcus announced to the gathered crowd, pointedly looking past her to Chad. "We need to make the right impression on Blackwood. Professional, polished, hungry." He pantomimed lean and eager, and several people laughed. Rebecca stirred her coffee, the spoon clinking against ceramic, each rotation a meditation to keep her face neutral. She'd learned not to react, not to give him ammunition, but her hands trembled slightly as she returned to her desk. By 11 a.m., Marcus had escalated from subtle digs to open dismissal. In the senior partners meeting, he distributed the Blackwood presentation agenda with Chad listed as lead, Rebecca relegated to supporting research. When she objected, professionally, calmly, with documented evidence of her role, Marcus sighed theatrically. "Rebecca, you're invaluable behind the scenes. But client relations requires a certain presence. You understand, right? It's about what communicates success. Translation, thin equals successful, fat equals hidden away. The other partners studied their phones, their pens, the ceiling, anywhere but her face. The worst humiliation happened at 2 p.m. during the final run-through. Rebecca had prepared supplementary materials, anticipating questions the Blackwood CEO might ask. As she began explaining the market penetration strategy, Marcus interrupted. Actually, let's not overwhelm ourselves. Chad will handle the presentation. Rebecca, you'll observe from the back of the room. If we need data, we'll call on you. He made it sound like a courtesy, but his smile was sharp as glass. Chad fumbled through her carefully crafted narrative, mispronouncing competitor names, mixing up quarterly projections. And Marcus just nodded encouragingly, as if incompetence delivered in a slim-fit suit was superior to expertise housed in a larger body. Rebecca sat at her desk after the meeting, hands pressed flat against the cool surface, fighting the urge to cry. Not here, not where they could see. She focused on her breathing, counting inhales, but humiliation pooled in her chest like concrete. 8 years. 8 years of being the best analyst in the firm, of building relationships Marcus claimed as his own victories, of watching less qualified people promoted over her. Her computer screen blurred as tears finally escaped, and she quickly wiped them away, glancing around to ensure no witnesses. The open floor plan meant privacy was impossible, vulnerability a spectator sport. Her internal monologue was brutal. Maybe they're right. Maybe I don't look the part. Maybe if I'd tried harder, lost weight, been different, been less. She thought of her mother's words growing up. If you were just smaller, things would be easier. She thought of every diet, every gym membership, every morning she'd hated her reflection. She thought of shrinking herself in chairs, in meetings, in life, apologizing for existing in a body that refused to conform. And the worst part was the creeping belief that maybe this was as good as it got. Maybe invisible was her ceiling. But then something flickered in her memory. Rebecca's grandmother, a fierce Italian woman who'd run a bakery in Brooklyn for 40 years, once told her, "They'll try to make you small because they fear what happens when you take up space." Nonna Rosa had been a large woman, unapologetic, commanding every room she entered. She'd faced down landlords, suppliers, and critics with the same iron certainty. Her worth wasn't determined by her waistline. Rebecca remembered being 12, watching Nonna negotiate a contract, her presence filling the room like warmth and inevitability. "Never shrink for small minds," she'd said afterward. The decision point crystallized as Rebecca sat in the emptying office at 7 p.m. She could do nothing except tomorrow's humiliation, continue being the ghost behind the throne, or she could risk everything. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, heart hammering against her ribs. She could email the CEO directly, introduce herself, offer a preview briefing. It would enrage Marcus, possibly destroy her career, but continuing this way was already destroying her soul. The cursor blinked, patient, waiting for her choice, fight or flight, visible or invisible. The spark came from an unexpected source. Daniel Park, a senior analyst who joined 3 months ago, stopped by her desk. "That was some bullshit today," he said quietly, glancing toward Marcus's now dark office. "Your presentation was brilliant. Chad doesn't understand half of it." Daniel had always treated her like a colleague, not a problem to manage. He'd asked for her analysis, credited her insights, invited her to client dinners Marcus conveniently forgot to tell her about. Now, he leaned against her cubicle wall, arms crossed, genuinely angry on her behalf. "You know the Blackwood CEO used to work at Sterling & Morgan, right? Where I worked. Catherine Blackwood doesn't tolerate incompetence, regardless of packaging." Rebecca looked up at Daniel, his words settling over her like possibility. "What are you saying?" she asked carefully. Daniel smiled, a co-conspirator grin. "I'm saying Catherine values substance over style, and I'm saying I still have her direct email if you want to send her the real presentation tonight. Let her see what she's actually paying for." He slid a business card across her desk, Catherine Blackwood's contact information embossed in silver. "Your choice, but I'd want to know if someone was about to waste my time and money with a hollow dog and pony show." He walked away, leaving Rebecca staring at the card, at the choice, at the possibility of being seen. The anger arrived at midnight, white-hot and clarifying. Rebecca sat in her apartment, wine glass in hand, laptop open, the rage that had been simmering for 8 years finally boiling over. She'd been so focused on being pleasant, on not making waves, on proving she belonged despite her body, that she'd forgotten something fundamental. She was brilliant. Her analysis had saved the firm millions. Her strategies had opened 3 new markets. Her relationships sustained half their client base. And Marcus had stolen credit for all of it because she'd let him, because she'd believed the lie that her body disqualified her merit. The research phase consumed her from midnight until 4 a.m. She compiled every presentation she'd authored that Marcus had delivered under his name, every client relationship she'd built that he'd claimed, every project where her work had been rebranded through Chad's inadequate understanding. She documented the patterns of exclusion, emails where she was mysteriously removed from client meetings, promotions given to less senior staff, the salary gap between her compensation and male colleagues at her level. The evidence was damning, a paper trail of systematic erasure. But more importantly, she researched Catherine Blackwood. Catherine Blackwood was 52, a self-made CEO who'd built Blackwood Industries from a failing manufacturing concern into a renewable energy powerhouse. Interviews revealed someone who valued innovation, despised corporate politics, and had publicly criticized the finance industry's obsession with optics over outcomes. She'd recently given a keynote about unconscious bias in business partnerships, and crucially, she'd terminated contracts with 3 firms in the past 2 years for, in her words, presenting empty suits when I paid for expertise. This was someone who might actually care about substance. Rebecca's first small act of defiance came at 9 a.m. when she walked into the office wearing her favorite dress, a jewel blue wrap dress that hugged her curves, paired with heels that added 3 inches to her 5'6" frame. She'd spent years in shapeless black suits trying to minimize, to disappear. Today, she took up space. Heads turned as she crossed to her desk, not with judgment, but with surprise. She'd forgotten what confidence looked like on her body. The dress didn't hide her, it celebrated her. And the strangest thing happened. She moved differently, shoulders back, stride purposeful, claiming the floor she walked on. An unexpected ally emerged during the morning briefing. Jennifer Chen, the firm's operations director, pulled Rebecca aside after Marcus finished outlining the day's schedule. "I got your email last night," Jennifer said quietly. Rebecca's stomach dropped. She'd sent Catherine Blackwood her presentation at 4 a.m., along with a professional introduction, and offered to provide additional context. Had Jennifer somehow intercepted it? "Relax," Jennifer continued, reading her panic. "I didn't intercept anything. Catherine forwarded it to me. She's an old business school friend. Asked me if you were as good as your work suggested." Jennifer smiled, a knowing, strategic smile. "I told her you were better." Marcus attacked again at 11 a.m., his confidence shaken by Rebecca's transformation, but his cruelty reflexive. In front of assembled staff, he made a show of adjusting the Blackwood meeting agenda. "Rebecca, I need you on call during the presentation, but not in the room. You know how crowded the conference space gets, and we want everyone comfortable." The implication hung in the air. Her body would make people uncomfortable, would take up too much room. Several colleagues looked down, embarrassed but silent. But before Rebecca could respond, Daniel spoke up. "Actually, Marcus, Catherine specifically requested that all senior analysts involved in the project be present. I confirmed with her office this morning." Flashback. Rebecca was 11 years old, standing in the school cafeteria as popular girls laughed at her lunch. "Do you really need that?" one asked, pointing at her sandwich. Her mother had packed her favorite, Italian hero with all the fixings, and suddenly it felt like evidence of her unworthiness. She'd thrown it away, gone hungry, learned that taking up less space, consuming less, wanting less, might earn her acceptance. That same year, her father had left, and her mother's grief manifested as control over Rebecca's body. Every meal became a negotiation, every pound a failure, every curve a disappointment. Food transformed from nourishment to battleground. Jennifer's story emerged over coffee that afternoon. "I was passed over for partner 3 times, she revealed, because I took maternity leave. They never said that, of course, just kept saying I wasn't ready or needed more seasoning. Meanwhile, men my age who took golf trips every quarter got promoted. She'd finally threatened a discrimination lawsuit, had documentation proving the pattern, had allies who corroborated her experience. The firm settled, promoted me, and now I'm untouchable. But more importantly, I learned something. They only have power if you believe their narrative. The moment you reject their story about your worth, everything shifts." Rebecca spent her lunch hour practicing. Not the presentation, she knew that material cold, but her voice. She stood in the empty conference room, speaking her analysis aloud, adjusting her tone from apologetic to authoritative. She caught herself hedging. "I think maybe this might be, if that makes sense," she reframed. "The data shows. This strategy will. The results are clear." Each repetition felt like shedding skin, exposing something raw but powerful underneath. Her voice dropped half an octave when she stopped seeking permission to speak and simply spoke. She recorded herself, played it back, adjusted. Competence sounded different than apology. Community awareness spread like wildfire through the 7th floor. By 3 p.m., everyone knew something was happening. Daniel had accidentally mentioned in the break room that Catherine Blackwood had requested Rebecca's direct contact. Chad looked nauseous, suddenly realizing he'd be presenting work he barely understood. Marcus's assistant started treating Rebecca with new deference, offering coffee, asking if she needed anything. The shift was subtle but unmistakable. Power was changing hands before the meeting even occurred. People wanted to be on the winning side, and the odds were recalculating. The antagonist's weakness revealed itself during a tense 4 p.m. encounter. Rebecca overheard Marcus on a phone call, his voice tight with anxiety. "I know the Morrison account is shaky. Just keep it quiet until after Blackwood. If we land this contract, we can absorb those losses. If we don't..." He trailed off, and Rebecca understood. The firm was in trouble. Marcus needed Blackwood Industries not just for growth but for survival. His treatment of her wasn't just cruelty, it was desperation. He was a mediocre talent coasting on image, and he'd bet everything on a world where appearance mattered more than ability. That world was ending. Rebecca made her bold plan during the train ride home. She would arrive early tomorrow, before Marcus. She would set up the conference room herself, load her real presentation, the comprehensive analysis, not Chad's watered-down version. She would position herself at the table, not in the back, claiming her seat before it could be denied. And when Catherine Blackwood arrived, Rebecca would introduce herself directly, establish the relationship before Marcus could interfere. It was risky, potentially career-ending if it backfired. But something Jennifer said had lodged in her mind. They only have power if you believe their narrative. She was done believing. The final preparation happened that evening. Rebecca laid out her outfit. The blue dress again, armor disguised as fabric. She reviewed her notes, not to memorize, but to internalize, to let confidence replace anxiety. She called her mother, something she rarely did. "Mom, remember when you used to say things would be easier if I was smaller?" Her mother's silence was answer enough. "I need you to know that was wrong. My size isn't the problem. People's bigotry is the problem." Her mother started to protest, defend, justify. Rebecca cut her off, not with anger, but with finality. "I love you, but I'm done shrinking. I'm done apologizing for taking up space. I wanted you to know." She hung up before the conversation could spiral, before old patterns could reassert themselves. At midnight, Rebecca received an email from Catherine Blackwood. "Looking forward to meeting you tomorrow. Your analysis is impressive. Let's discuss it in detail." 6 words that changed everything. "Looking forward to meeting you tomorrow." Not Chad, Not Marcus. You. Rebecca read the email 17 times, let it sink into her bones like sunlight after winter. Someone saw her work. Someone valued her expertise. Someone looked past the body that had been weaponized against her and recognized the mind that had always been her true power. She fell asleep smiling, dreaming of Nonna Rosa saying, "Now you take up space." The confrontation began at 7:30 a.m. when Rebecca arrived to find Marcus already in the office, attempting to rearrange the conference room. She appeared in the doorway, her blue dress a declaration, her expression calm as stone. "Good morning, Marcus. I'll be setting up for the Blackwood presentation." He spun around, surprise flickering across his face before hardening into authority. "I don't think so. Chad's handling this, remember?" Rebecca crossed to the presentation computer, her heels clicking against polished floor. "Catherine Blackwood requested my presence specifically. Check your email." She'd CC'd him on Catherine's response, ensuring he couldn't claim ignorance. Marcus's shock manifested as sputtering outrage. "You contacted the client directly, without authorization. That's a terminable offense, Rebecca." But his voice lacked conviction, uncertainty creeping in. Rebecca connected her laptop to the display system, her movements precise and unhurried. "I introduced myself as the project lead and offered supplementary briefing materials. That's standard client relationship management. Unless you're suggesting I'm not the project lead." She turned to face him fully, and something in her posture, shoulders squared, chin level, weight distributed evenly, made him step back involuntarily. This wasn't the woman he'd been diminishing for years. This was someone new, or perhaps someone who'd always existed beneath enforced invisibility. The scene became public at 8:15 a.m. when staff began arriving. Marcus attempted to reassert control, loudly instructing Chad to prepare for the presentation. But Jennifer appeared with a printed agenda from Catherine Blackwood's office, distributed to all attendees. Rebecca Hayes, Senior Analyst, European Markets, Presentation Lead, was listed in bold at the top. Chad Brennan, Research Support. The reversal was complete and documented. Colleagues gathered, sensing drama, witnessing the power structure crack. Marcus's face flushed deep red, a vein pulsing at his temple, but he was trapped. Contradicting the client's explicit agenda would expose his game. At 9 a.m., Rebecca stood at the head of the conference table and spoke her truth. Catherine Blackwood had arrived with 2 VPs, and Marcus had attempted his usual smooth introduction. Rebecca politely but firmly interrupted. "Good morning, Catherine. Thank you for the opportunity to present this strategy." She made direct eye contact, her voice clear and unwavering. "I've been developing this European expansion framework for 18 months. Today, I'll walk you through the complete analysis: market entry barriers, competitive positioning, regulatory considerations, and projected 5-year returns. I've prepared comprehensive materials addressing the questions you emailed about last night." Calm, poised, unapologetic, the evidence of Marcus's deception unfolded organically throughout her presentation. Rebecca displayed market research Chad couldn't explain, referenced client meetings Marcus had excluded her from, presented financial models that bore her analytical signature. Catherine asked pointed questions. Who conducted the Berlin market assessment? Whose relationship secured the Munich partnership? Who built the regulatory compliance framework? And each answer exposed the truth. Rebecca had done everything. Marcus had merely claimed credit, and Chad had been a poorly prepared puppet. The emperor's clothes dissolved with each slide. The physical moment of standing her ground came 20 minutes into the presentation. Marcus, panicking as his house of cards collapsed, interrupted. "Catherine, perhaps we should bring in some additional context from our senior leadership." Rebecca turned, and the look she gave him could have frozen fire. "Marcus, I'm providing the context. I built this strategy. These are my relationships, my research, my projections. If you have technical questions, I'm happy to address them. Otherwise, please hold comments until I've finished." The room went silent. No one had ever seen her confront him. Catherine Blackwood smiled slightly, an expression of satisfaction and vindication. Public support materialized as Daniel spoke up. For the record, Rebecca's been the driving force behind every successful European initiative this firm has launched in the past 3 years. Her analysis is why we're sitting in this room today. Jennifer added, Rebecca's promoted 2 of my operational efficiencies into strategic advantages. She sees connections others miss. Even Chad, to his credit, nodded miserably. She explained all of this to me yesterday. I don't understand half of it. She should be presenting. Allies emerged, speaking truth, refusing to pretend anymore. The collective silence that had enabled Marcus's cruelty shattered. Marcus attempted to manipulate the narrative one final time. I think what my colleagues are saying is that we have a strong team here at Thornton & Associates. Rebecca is certainly a valuable member of that team. Catherine Blackwood cut him off with the precision of a surgeon. Mr. Thornton, let's be very clear. I'm not partnering with a team. I'm partnering with expertise. And from what I'm seeing, the expertise I've been communicating with, the analysis I've been impressed by, and the strategic vision I'm prepared to invest in, all belong to Rebecca Hayes. So perhaps you could clarify, what exactly is your role in this proposal? The unexpected revelation came in Catherine's next words. I should mention, Marcus, that I spoke with 3 of your former clients last week. Sterling, Morrison, and Blackwood Industries have something in common. We all nearly walked away from this firm because the people presenting weren't the people doing the work. Sterling told me Rebecca salvaged their account when you nearly tanked it with uninformed recommendations. Morrison said their retention was due to that brilliant analyst you keep hiding. I wanted to verify if the pattern was what I suspected. It was. She turned to Rebecca. I don't do business with firms that misrepresent their talent, but I'm very interested in doing business with you. The tide turned completely when Catherine made her position explicit. Rebecca, I'd like to offer you a choice. You can continue this project through Thornton & Associates with the understanding that you're the lead and will be compensated accordingly. Or, if you're interested, Blackwood Industries is opening a European strategy division, and we need a director. Either way, I'm working with you, not with impressive suits delivering someone else's work. The conference room seemed to tilt on its axis. Marcus's face went from red to white to grey. A job offer, public, witnessed, undeniable. Power had completely changed hands. The antagonist's fall began immediately. Catherine excused herself to make a call, and in her absence, Marcus tried damage control. Rebecca, let's discuss this privately. We can work something out. Promotion, title change, better office. But his voice was desperate now, stripped of its casual cruelty. Rebecca looked at him with something that wasn't quite pity, but wasn't victory either. Marcus, for 8 years you've told me I'm not enough, that I don't look right, don't fit, don't belong at the table. You made me doubt my worth because I don't match your narrow definition of professional. She paused, letting the weight of accumulated pain settle. But I am enough. I always was. The morning ended with Marcus in an emergency meeting with the senior partners, explaining why their most important potential client had exposed systematic mismanagement and discrimination. Rebecca sat in her cubicle, hands trembling from adrenaline, as colleagues stopped by with congratulations, apologies, and in some cases, shame. The power dynamics had shifted so completely that the floor felt like different geography. She'd been invisible yesterday. Today she was unavoidable. And somewhere in the chaos, Catherine Blackwood returned and said 4 words that changed everything. So what's your answer? The processing phase happened in Catherine Blackwood's hotel suite that evening. Rebecca had accepted the meeting, half expecting a professional debriefing, but Catherine poured wine and spoke candidly. I grew up poor in Glasgow, worked 3 jobs through university. When I entered finance, they told me my accent was distracting, my background concerning, my presence not quite right. I spent years trying to sand off my edges to become someone they'd accept. She sipped her wine, eyes distant with memory. Then I realized They'll always find a reason to dismiss you if they need to. The accent, the background, the school, the gender, the body. Whatever excuse maintains their power. New opportunities emerged with startling speed. By week's end, Rebecca had 3 offers. Catherine's director position at Blackwood Industries with a 40% salary increase and equity. A VP role at Sterling after they poached her from Thornton and Associates client list. And surprisingly, a partnership offer from her current firm after Marcus was encouraged to pursue other opportunities. Jennifer explained the latter. The senior partners realized that losing you would trigger other departures. You're not just brilliant, you're beloved. People have been waiting for someone to stand up to Marcus. You broke the dam. Rebecca invested in herself with intentionality she'd never allowed before. She hired an executive coach who specialized in women navigating corporate bias. She enrolled in an executive MBA program, not because she needed the credential, but because she wanted the expanded network and strategic frameworks. She joined a professional organization for women in finance, where she met others who'd faced similar erasure. Each investment was a declaration. I am worth developing. I am worth betting on. I am worth the time, money, and effort I've spent trying to shrink myself to fit other people's comfort. The physical transformation wasn't about weight loss, but about presence. Rebecca bought clothes that fit properly, that celebrated her body rather than apologized for it. She got a haircut that felt powerful rather than professional in the diminishing sense. She took up boxing. Not to become smaller, but to become stronger, to feel power in her arms, to occupy space with confidence rather than apology. When she walked into rooms now, she wasn't trying to minimize. She was 6 feet of presence in 5'9" heels, and it was glorious. Her body had always been fine. Her relationship with it had been damaged by a world that profited from her self-hatred. Marcus's current state reached her through office gossip. He'd been demoted to associate level, his clients redistributed, his corner office reassigned. 3 former clients had terminated contracts when they learned of his misrepresentation. The investigation Jennifer triggered had uncovered a pattern of credit theft affecting multiple employees, disproportionately women and people of color. He was interviewing at smaller firms, his reputation damaged, his easy confidence replaced by brittle defensiveness. Rebecca felt no satisfaction in his fall, only sadness that it took public exposure rather than institutional integrity to address his behavior. The romantic subplot developed gradually with Daniel. What began as allyship evolved into partnership, professional respect deepening into personal connection. He'd been divorced 2 years, was raising a 10-year-old daughter, and had learned through his ex-wife's feminist awakening that his silence in the face of workplace injustice was complicity. "I saw what Marcus did to you," he said over dinner one night. "I told myself it wasn't my place to intervene. That was cowardice disguised as professionalism. I'm sorry it took me so long." His apology, his accountability, his willingness to do better, it mattered. They moved slowly, building foundation before structure. Rebecca faced a new challenge when Sterling offered her the VP role with the caveat, "We need you to clean up some internal culture issues similar to what you experienced at Thornton." She was being asked to fix the system that had tried to break her, to mentor young women facing the same erasure she'd endured. The work was exhausting, confronting bias daily, but it was also purposeful. She implemented blind review processes for promotions, diversified hiring panels, created transparent evaluation criteria, small shifts that made huge differences. But old patterns whispered, "Are you being too much, too demanding, too difficult?" The moment of doubt came 3 months into her new role at Blackwood Industries. She'd ultimately chosen Catherine's offer for the autonomy and vision it provided. Rebecca had proposed an aggressive expansion timeline that the CFO called unrealistic. In the meeting, she felt herself hedging, softening, apologizing for ambition. Afterward, Catherine pulled her aside. "You did it again. You made yourself small when challenged. Your timeline is ambitious, not unrealistic. There's a difference. Own your vision, or others will diminish it for you. The feedback stung because it was accurate. Growth wasn't linear. Old habits reasserted themselves under pressure. She remembered her journey during a keynote speech at a Women in Finance conference. Standing before 300 professionals, Rebecca told her story, not as inspiration porn, but as strategic analysis of systemic bias. They tried to convince me my body was the problem, but the problem was a business culture that valued appearance over expertise, that rewarded performance of competence rather than actual competence, that protected mediocre men while exceptional women had to be extraordinary just to be seen. She shared specific tactics, documenting discrimination, building allies, refusing to shrink, naming bias when it appeared. The standing ovation was less about her and more about collective recognition. We've all been Rebecca. Rebecca reached a significant milestone when the European division she'd built launched successfully, exceeding first-year projections by 30%. Catherine presented her with a bonus and promotion to SVP, but more meaningful was the handwritten note. You bet on yourself when others wouldn't. That's the real leadership. Rebecca framed it, hung it in her office, a reminder that her worth wasn't determined by external validation, but by internal certainty. She'd stopped waiting for permission to be excellent. She'd stopped apologizing for taking up space. She'd stopped shrinking to accommodate small minds. The transformation completed when Rebecca became the mentor she'd needed. She hired 3 analysts, intentionally recruiting talented women who'd been overlooked elsewhere. She made their work visible, credited their insights, advocated for their promotions. When she noticed one being interrupted in meetings, she interrupted back, "Let her finish." When another was excluded from a client dinner, she made attendance non-negotiable. She built the environment she'd been denied, creating space for others to be seen. The cycle of erasure stopped with her generation. The cycle of advocacy began. Her body celebrated, not in transformation, but in liberation. Rebecca went to the beach with Daniel and his daughter, wore a vibrant swimsuit, felt sun on skin without shame. She danced at her cousin's wedding, her body moving with joy rather than self-consciousness. She ate meals without negotiating, without earning, without punishing. Food was fuel and pleasure, not moral judgment. Her body did remarkable things, carried her through 14-hour workdays, responded to exercise with strength, housed a brilliant mind. It had always been enough. She'd just stopped believing the people who said otherwise. The moment of victory arrived 18 months after the confrontation with Marcus. Blackwood Industries had successfully expanded into 12 European markets, generating $200 million new revenue. The Wall Street Journal featured Rebecca in a profile titled "The Analyst Who Changed the Game." The article detailed not just her business acumen, but the cultural transformation she'd led, implementing bias training, diversifying leadership, creating pathways for overlooked talent. The phone calls started immediately. Speaking invitations, consulting requests, media appearances. She'd become visible in a way that couldn't be dismissed or diminished. Marcus's final appearance was brief but symbolic. He approached her at an industry conference, his confidence replaced by something brittle. "Rebecca, congratulations on your success, truly." She studied him, this man who'd shaped years of her life through cruelty, now diminished by his own mediocrity. "Thank you, Marcus." She could have been gracious, could have offered forgiveness he hadn't earned. Instead, she said, "I hope you've learned something from this experience, but honestly, your growth isn't my responsibility. It never was." She walked away, and the freedom of that exit, not needing his acknowledgement, not seeking his redemption, felt like the final weight lifting. Grace offered or not was entirely her choice. Some asked if she'd forgiven Marcus, if she'd moved past the hurt, if she'd let it go. Rebecca's answer evolved. "Forgiveness is personal, but accountability is structural. I've healed from what he did, but I won't pretend it didn't matter, won't minimize it for others' comfort. He harmed people systematically. That harm has consequences. I don't need to forgive him to move forward. I need institutions to change so others don't face what I faced. It was a nuanced position that some found unsatisfying, preferring tidy narratives of redemption. But Rebecca was done performing for others' comfort. Reflection on the journey came during a therapy session, another investment in herself. Her therapist asked what she'd learned. That power looks like permission until you realize it's just a story we tell ourselves. No one can grant you worth. They can recognize it or refuse to. But your value exists independent of their acknowledgement. She'd learned that taking up space wasn't selfish, but necessary, that her body wasn't the problem, that excellence didn't require apology. She'd learned that systems change when people refuse to participate in their own diminishment. She'd learned that she was, and always had been, enough. Her new life was established in tangible ways. Rebecca moved to a light-filled apartment overlooking the park, space she'd never allowed herself before. She'd always chosen small, cheap, hidden places, as if she didn't deserve comfort. She hosted dinner parties, filled her home with friends and laughter and abundance. She traveled to the European offices quarterly, building relationships, refining strategy, being visible. Professionally, she was thriving. Personally, her relationship with Daniel deepened into partnership. They moved in together, blending his family with her newfound peace. His daughter told her teacher she had the coolest stepmom who runs businesses in Europe. It felt like victory. Inspiring others became inevitable. Young women reached out constantly, through LinkedIn, through mutual contacts, through her published articles. They shared stories eerily similar to hers. Talented, overlooked, told they didn't fit. Rebecca created a formal mentorship program, structured time to pay forward the advocacy she'd rarely received. She also spoke publicly about body diversity in professional spaces, pushing back against the wellness programs that were thinly disguised weight loss initiatives. Health isn't measured by size, she said at a corporate leadership summit. And professional competence certainly isn't. The obsession with employee bodies is about control, not care. Her body celebrated, publicly, unapologetically, joyfully. Rebecca did a photo shoot for the Wall Street Journal profile in bold colors, her curves highlighted rather than hidden. She posted it on social media with the caption, "This is what a senior vice president looks like." The comments ranged from supportive to hateful, but the message landed, professional excellence comes in all bodies. She spoke at a body positivity conference, sharing space with activists who'd been fighting these battles longer. "I came late to this work," she acknowledged. "I spent years believing my body was wrong, rather than recognizing the wrongness of a system that profits from our self-hatred." The circle complete moment happened when Rebecca returned to Thornton and Associates for a guest lecture in their analyst training program. The firm had undergone significant cultural reform after the investigation. Marcus's behavior had triggered comprehensive policy changes. She stood in the same conference room where she'd been humiliated, but the space held different meaning now. She taught the new analysts about building client relationships, owning expertise, and navigating bias. During Q&A, a young woman asked, "How did you find the courage to speak up?" Rebecca smiled. "I stopped confusing courage with comfort. Speaking up wasn't comfortable, but silence was killing me. Sometimes survival looks like risk." She changed the system, incrementally, structurally, persistently. Rebecca consulted with 3 other finance firms on diversity initiatives, specifically addressing size discrimination. She co-authored an article for Harvard Business Review on the competence tax paid by professionals in marginalized bodies. She joined the board of a non-profit promoting body diversity in corporate settings. Each action was small, but collectively they shifted culture. When a major financial publication launched a Most Influential Women in Finance issue featuring only thin white women, Rebecca called it out publicly. The next year's issue looked different. Progress was slow, imperfect, but undeniable. The final encounter with her ally came on a Sunday morning. Daniel made breakfast while Rebecca worked at the kitchen table, reviewing expansion projections for the Asia-Pacific markets. His daughter Sophia colored beside her, occasionally asking questions about graphs. "What's this line mean?" Sophia asked, pointing to a growth projection. "That shows how many jobs we'll create," Rebecca explained. "In these cities." Sophia considered this seriously. "You make jobs?" Rebecca nodded. "I help build businesses that create opportunities." Sophia returned to coloring, then added quietly, "My teacher said girls can't be good at math, but you're really good at math." Rebecca put down her pen. "Your teacher is wrong, and you tell her I said so." Rebecca's new dream crystallized as she stood at her office window overlooking the city. She'd achieved the professional success she'd fought for. SVP title, financial security, influence, respect. But something larger called to her. She wanted to build an investment firm specifically funding women-led businesses, prioritizing founders overlooked by traditional VC. She wanted to create the financial ecosystem that had tried to exclude her, but build it right. Diverse leadership, equitable practices, intentional advocacy. Catherine, when Rebecca proposed the idea, smiled widely. "I wondered when you'd get here. I'm your first investor. Let's change who gets capital, because that's how we change who gets power." Rebecca Hayes stood on the balcony of her apartment, city lights sprawling below like possibilities, and felt something she'd spent 38 years seeking. Peace. Not the peace of arrival, but of becoming. She'd transformed from the woman who'd apologized for existing to the woman who took up space unapologetically. Her body hadn't changed significantly. Some weight lost through boxing, some gained through joyful living, but her relationship with it had revolutionized. She was enough. She'd always been enough. The world had lied, and she'd stopped believing the lie. Your body is not your limitation. Your voice matters. Your story is not finished. Every person who's been told they're too much or not enough. Every talent hidden because you didn't fit someone's narrow imagination. You are seen. The systems that tried to diminish you are not inevitable. They're changeable. And change begins the moment you refuse to make yourself small for small minds. Rebecca's journey from invisible to unavoidable isn't rare. It's just rarely visible. But visibility, as she learned, is power. And power, claimed rather than granted, cannot be revoked. If this story moved you, leave a comment below sharing your thoughts. Subscribe for more stories of women who refuse to be small. I'll see you in the next one.